Puritans played a major role in the founding of America. They were one of the first groups to settle into the New World. They came over to America in order to escape the religious persecution that they were facing in New England from the Roman Catholic Church and the king there. They were not the first group that did settle into the New World. That first group had settled in Jamestown in Virginia, but they were unique from them, again, as they had come to escape that religious persecution. So with it, the first group really, as we know them, were the Pilgrims that had come over in 1620. They settled in Plymouth, and Plymouth grew then into Massachusetts, and from Massachusetts then you grew out Connecticut even. So the Puritans really were dominant in New England. So want to cover a couple of things here in terms of, again, how they influenced the founding of America. So again, we talked about them being in New England. The Puritans, as we know, were very religious, but they really believed that the Lord had created kind of a unified society and didn't really see any kind of separation between church and state. As Mark Knoll mentions in his book, A History of Christianity in the United States, they kind of saw it as complementary spheres. So the people actually had to be members of the church in order to vote within the government in the communities and towns. And then John Winthrop, who was a very well-known Puritan, served as the governor then of Massachusetts, kind of for that majority of the first two decades of that colony being there. So this belief in that unification between all the spheres really also influenced their desire to kind of reform society and convert the Native Americans and going out and reaching them. The governments that were established there were really founded on the scriptures. The laws that were created were based on Old Testament, and then this idea of a covenant between themselves and the Lord even then influenced the covenants and the different things that were kind of established within the societies. Roger Schultz, even in his article, Christian America, Earl Warren and Our Christian Roots, cites that a majority of the provisions of the Bill of Rights comes from the Puritan Massachusetts bodies of liberties. So again, there's that influence in government, and then the fundamental orders of Connecticut, which is cited as the first written constitution in the colonies, was also established by the Puritans themselves. So there's that strong influence in terms of into the government there, which again is coming with biblical foundation influencing those documents. Also, they had a very strong emphasis on education and being able to read so that they could read the Bible, but then this helped them to establish Harvard College to ensure that the people were educated, not only on the religious side, but them being able to read. And we know that Harvard is still around. They also established a law in 1647. The old Deluder Satan law actually required schools to be established to ensure that everyone could read. And I mean, we know that the education system is extremely prominent now. We have the public education system, and we have universities. We have the private school sector. So that founding of them and focus on education has carried on through now. Even looking back at the New England primer, that used the biblical references for teaching as well. So again, there's the underlying religious influence from the Puritans, even within education. And the final thing here is they really did emphasize that strong work ethic, and again, that's coming from that covenant, with the Lord, and keeping with that, and reaping those benefits and blessings. So with that work ethic, they really established those strong communities and churches, and grew them, establishing those towns and colonies, and even building up the militia. They've really encouraged people to go after their vocation and calling, and what the Lord had called them to do. And this even transitions into the idea of the capitalism, and going after the American dream, and working hard, and reaping those benefits and blessings. So as mentioned, there were definitely a lot of influences, not only in terms of with government and establishing the colonies, but also the influence on education, and even looking into the American dream.